You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 53, Your Sixth Vital Sign. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, how are you today? I'm so happy that you're joining me today. I really appreciate your support and openness to learning. I think you're awesome. It says a lot about what a great person you are that you're willing to spend your time listening to a podcast about optimizing your health as you get further along this journey called life. How has your week been? Have you noticed any little calls to adventure popping up? Did you answer the call? Did you come back a slightly different person? Today, we're going to talk about your sixth vital sign. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about, especially for smart women like you. But first, do you remember what our other vital signs are? Or maybe we should start with what vital signs even are. I'm sure you know, but vital signs are the body measurements we take to determine on a general level how well somebody's body is functioning. We think of them a lot in emergency medicine. Paramedics watch vital signs closely. If someone is, quote, crashing, one or more of their vital signs are signaling that their body is not functioning well, like not well enough to keep them alive. That's a problem. I typically think of there being 4 vital signs: temperature, pulse, respiratory rate, and blood pressure. Sometimes people include other things like pupil size and reactivity to light. If you happen to have listened to my episodes 31 and 32, you know what I think your 5th vital sign is. This is a great indicator of how well everything is working together inside your body. It's not something a paramedic would assess, but it's your menstrual cycle. The regularity and details of it can tell us a lot about your physiology. It's worth paying attention to. So if that's the 5th, what do you think the 6th vital sign would be? Hey there, I wanted to quickly interrupt and let you know that it's so much less of a struggle to consistently dominate your health choices when the thoughts you think naturally nudge you toward what you're trying to achieve. If you're looking to more consistently rock your healthy behaviors, I have a completely free 18-minute mini course for smart women like you who know that sometimes a quick mind flip can go a long way. Click the link in the show notes or go to healthcourage.ck/page/mini for this free mini course on 6 thoughts people who consistently rock their health choices think, and start putting one of them to good use inside your head today. What can be measured that can tell us a lot about how well your body can function and thrive? Well, it could be a lot of things. I've heard that it should be pain. This makes sense if you're an EMT evaluating a patient in the back of an ambulance. But here is something said by Dr. Carla Prado. The thing that it should be another vital sign in regards to overall health, and as you'll see, your resilience, which is huge. We can do a lot to prevent some unwanted health outcomes, but sometimes bad stuff still happens. If your 6th vital sign measures in the optimal category, you'll both avoid many and bounce back well from the other health challenges like a professional. That's what we're all about here. This is the measure of the volume of the largest endocrine organ in your body. The bigger, the better. Well, to a point. Extremes aren't great, but I'm pretty sure none of you listening are at the upper extreme, like to the point of being unhealthy. So, what is this endocrine organ? Can you guess? We've heard that the skin is the largest organ in the body, but it's not an endocrine organ. Thank goodness, because I don't really want to increase the size of my skin. Other than becoming larger, you'd have to become like a Shar-Pei human. Can you imagine if that were the new thing? I'm pretty confident that it will not be. Luckily, we're also not looking to increase the size of our pancreas or thyroid or thymus. That'd be pretty hard. The size of this endocrine organ directly correlates with how well you will age on several different levels. Subcellular aging, inflammation, immune function, which is hugely important, cognitive abilities, and aesthetically. Might as well look good as you decrease your risk of cancer, diabetes, and chronic pain. If you haven't guessed by now, we're talking about your muscle mass. How much do you think about your overall muscle tissue volume? It's important for way more than just appearance, and you don't have to look any certain way to have a healthy amount of muscle mass. I don't care about this for you because of how you look. You look great the way you are right now. Low muscle mass can happen at any body weight, so it's important to directly measure it. Hence the idea of it being another vital sign. Hundreds or thousands of medical studies show that patients with low muscle mass experience very different health outcomes from patients with healthy muscle mass. Want to have a 40% higher chance of dying of breast cancer? Get diagnosed when you have low muscle mass. Want to be more likely to get alzheimer's, and if you do have a more severe case? Have low muscle mass. Want more post-surgical complications, longer hospital stays, longer time required on a ventilator in the ICU, lower quality of life, and poorer overall survival rates? Well, you get the idea. People who have low overall muscle mass have impaired immune system function. This is bad news for catching circulating viruses, but even worse news for your innate ability to spot cancer cells and keep them from setting up shop and starting to multiply. It's so crucial to keep our immune system in top gear, especially as we get older, because if we do nothing, it starts to decline with age. There are several different interesting ways that skeletal muscle promotes healthy immunity. One is that lymphocytes and macrophages need the non-essential amino acid glutamine, which is produced by our muscles when they're active. So, a bigger glutamine pool in the form of larger, more active muscles strengthens those immune cells. Another has to do with cytokines. We've all gotten a lesson in cytokine storms lately, but cytokines are meant to be saviors, and they generally are as long as they stay in balance. There are pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokines. Both are important. We do need acute inflammation sometimes. The problem comes when there are too many pro-inflammatory cytokines relative to the anti-inflammatory ones. Interleukin 6 has both pro and anti-inflammatory types, depending on which tissue it's released from. And, I didn't know this before, but an essential source of the anti-inflammatory interleukin 6 is skeletal muscle. When there is more skeletal muscle present, more anti-inflammatory interleukin 6 can be released, which helps keep the pro-inflammatory IL-6 in check, promoting a more rapid and thorough healing process. Pretty cool, right? Something I hadn't really thought a lot about before is that if you have a traumatic event like an accident or a surgery or even an infection, your body needs a sufficient and immediate supply of amino acids to use for repair. Amino acids are the little protein building blocks that are essential to being able to construct disaster cleanup structures. Your muscles are a readily available, abundant source of amino acids that can be tapped into for this. If you have sufficient muscle tissue, you have on-site repair materials ready to use in case of catastrophe. It's kind of like having a 72-hour kit. In addition to all the other awesome things your muscle mass can do for you, it's like having a 50-pound bag of dry beans on your body, just in case. Maybe more like an MRE. Do you know what those are? The military rations. Chicken a la king or burrito beef that can be eaten without heating if necessary and last for decades. Yummy. I actually really love emergency preparedness type stuff. I won't go off on a big tangent, but I live in an earthquake zone and I've been evacuated from my house twice due to wildfires, and I feel a lot better about the possibility of earthquakes, pandemics, civil unrest, extended power outages, and general apocalypse type stuff, because I know that I have the basics on hand to take care of myself and my family. I've never thought of muscle mass on my body in that way before. I have thought of strength and endurance as assets, which they totally are, but the idea of carrying around extra building blocks for emergency repairs is pretty cool. Our bodies are so efficient at recycling. It's amazing. There are all kinds of studies that show that low muscle mass is highly correlated with development of mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease. In one study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that I looked through, they measured muscle strength of senior adults with a bunch of different tools to measure grip strength and flexion and extension and all kinds of muscles, and they gave them each a Z-score. I'm not super familiar with muscle Z-scores. Z-scores in general just have to do with where you fall on a bell curve of averages, but I'm not super clear on how much more strength you'd have to go up or down 1 unit in muscle Z-score. But in this study, each one Z-score muscle strength unit above the average showed a 43% decrease in the risk of Alzheimer's disease. 43%. That's insane. If there were a pill that could do that, it would be a blockbuster drug. Something else that would be a mega blockbuster drug would be something that could sensitize you to your own insulin in a healthy way. Something that could gobble up glucose so that your insulin levels naturally stay lower. The greater proportion of your life you can live with a lower insulin level, the more insulin sensitive you will be. The more insulin sensitive you are, the longer and more healthfully you'll live. It's uber mega important. Staying insulin sensitive by keeping your insulin level low most of the time may be the most important thing you can do for yourself. More muscle mass means more tissue that loves to consume glucose. 80% of the reason that glucose starts to come down after a meal is because glucose is being pulled into the muscles. People with higher muscle mass have their glucose levels come down more quickly after meals because their muscles are hungry for it. Having your glucose level come down in a shorter amount of time is a good thing. This is part of a longer discussion. We need insulin on sometimes and off sometimes. We can't build muscle without insulin. But generally, most people live their lives in a state of chronically elevated insulin. And it's killing them, literally. One way to optimize this issue is to own more muscle mass. So don't go minimalist with your muscle collection. Unlike your Beanie Babies, they're useful, they're attractive, socially acceptable, they appreciate and value, and send the physiological message that you have a good reason to keep on living. Since muscles exist to move our bones, having good muscle mass is generally associated with having good bone density. Having our muscles put stress on our bones by pulling them around is a very good thing for our bone density. We all know that having strong bones is super important as we get older. So while it's the activities we do to grow our muscles that make our bones strong, muscle strength and bone strength typically go together. Good muscle mass by itself is also associated with lower risk of injury and fracture. Being strong makes you more injury-proof and resilient. Of course, we all know that we don't want to be so frail and feeble that we can't get ourselves into and out of bed or the shower or the car when we're old. That's a good thing to be aware of and prevent from happening. Our quality of life will be so much better if we can perform our activities of daily living by ourselves when we're old, like really old. I would suggest that you don't stop there though, and plan to hike, bike, ski, parasail, rock climb, cage fight, whatever floats your boat when you're in your 80s and beyond. But that's up to you. Acting now to have good muscle strength 40 years from now is a good reason to strength train, but it might not be an effective reason in terms of motivation strategy. If you haven't watched my free 16-minute mini course on 6 thoughts people who consistently rock their health habits think, then what are you waiting for? And I talk in there about research by Michelle Seeger, who has proven that people who exercise for an abstract, distant future reason are statistically significantly less likely to stick with their workouts than people who exercise for a benefit they get right now. This is helpful to get you sticking with your exercise plan. Find a reason why it makes you feel good today and do it for that reason. As far as strength training goes, I'm so passionate about you realizing what your body is capable of. Forget about what you look like or the endless mind chatter that tells you what you need is for your body to be smaller. Focus on the power you're able to generate. I know for me, what changed everything with my relationship to exercise was barbells and the powerlifting lifts. I was so lucky to sort of stumble into it in the best possible way. But once I started to see the immense power of writing something down in a notebook, I was hooked. Never again did I think of exercising as something I, quote, should do. Not once since then have I tried to find an excuse to skip my workout. My problem now is needing a rest day and really not wanting to have to take it. Like, this is so dumb, but I stubbed my little pinky toe and it's all purple and swollen and it hurts so bad and it's excruciating to put on a shoe, but I still went and tried to do most of my workout because I don't want to skip it. I do it now because I love it. You couldn't pay me not to work on my lifts. I love feeling capable of producing a force and watching that capability increase slowly over time. It's the best. When I think of where I started and where I am now, it makes me so proud. I realize that we're all different, and that's a good thing. What makes me jump out of my bed with excitement at 6 a.m. will be different than what fires you up, as it should be. But I hope that you can find something that you love about what your muscles are capable of doing, that you can track and systematize and watch improve. Then, remember to celebrate as your capacity increases. Focus on what your body can do rather than how it looks. Let the cosmetic benefit of a muscular build be a byproduct of your joy, not the cause of it. If you haven't found a muscle building activity that you deeply love yet, don't give up. Keep trying things and being open to new ideas. And maybe you can convince yourself to do a few minutes of exercises you don't necessarily love for the sake of increasing your strength. You need some kind of resistance or load. It is possible to have the load be your own body weight or bands, but don't be afraid of barbells. They really are the best, at least in my opinion. And remember the principle of progressive overload. If you want to get stronger in a meaningful way, you can't just lift the same weight every time. Your body will adapt to that and you'll stay where you are. And you can't do a bunch of random things and expect to see focused results. There needs to be some intentionality behind what you're doing. That planning and focus is so worth it. I promise. All movement is good. Well, I guess that's not really true, is it? Some movements sprain your ankle or tear your ACL or stub your pinky toe in the night. But all forms of exercise that are done correctly and feel good to your body have their place. It really is true that the best exercise for you is the one that you'll do. Follow your bliss and all of that. But remember that all cardio and no weights don't make for a very muscular body. You can be an endurance athlete and have very low bone density and low muscle mass. In fact, a lot of them do. I think everyone should do some resistance training. The benefits are astounding. What resistance exercises have you tried? What do you want to try? Is there a way you can make resistance training more fun? What is it about other types of movement that are so fun for you? Can you use one of those elements to make your resistance training more fun? So, how much muscle mass should you have? The, quote, normal amount to have is about 30% of your body mass should be muscle mass. What is considered normal decreases over time from 33% when you're 18 to 26% when you're 76. The typical is to lose about 4 to 8% of your muscle mass every decade after age 30. Just because that's the, quote, normal doesn't mean that it's optimal. I say, don't be normal. Have the muscle mass of an 18-year-old when you're 80 years old. Gain 3 to 8% of muscle mass every decade after age 30. Yeah. The only way to know your body composition for sure is to get a body analysis. There are a few. I'm a big fan of the DEXA body scan. You can probably find one by you. It's about $70 and is totally easy and painless. It will give you very specific data about your body composition. You might think you don't want to know, but you do. I promise. Because you love yourself as you are, no matter what. Your body composition is not a measure of your value or worth or okayness. It's just data. And once you know what data you're working with, everything becomes clearer. You can still choose to do nothing if you want to, but it's always better to operate with all the facts. Gain lean mass just because you think it'd be a cool thing to do, not because it's something else you feel like you have to add to the list of things you don't really want to do. Thank you so much for being here today. I know you're busy and have lots of choices of how to spend your time, so I really, truly appreciate you and admire you for spending some time up-leveling your physiological functioning so your biological age stays younger than your chronological age and you're able to step up and shine brighter instead of shrinking back and slowing down. Don't forget that you are awesome. Next week, I'm going to try to get you to quit your job as a librarian, unless you really are an actual librarian. Until then, keep rocking your sixth vital sign and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.